about it. We've already delayed the Navy from implementing this last year into this year. And when they come out with another statement, final EIS, then we have 30 days to comment, and we're going to go to Washington, and we're going to ask for hearings, and we're going to protest this to stop it. And then you see the problem is you've got proposals going for Alaska. You've got Gulf of Mexico programs waiting to be started for warfare testing. Even the Air Force is going to be dropping bombs in the Gulf coming up.
What do you mean they're going to be dropping bombs in the Gulf Coast?
Well, the Air Force has asked for permission under their Range Complex EIS in order to drop bombs for practice in the Gulf of Mexico.
Why the Gulf of Mexico? It's in no position right now for anything, let alone those exercises shouldn't be done in our oceans. We have faults. We have volcanoes in oceans. We have all kinds of things going on that are going to disturb wildlife and habitat.
That's correct, and the chemicals will impact them. We could trigger earthquakes. We could trigger our earthquake faults from the bomb blasts here in Northern California just because we're on the San Andreas and other faults running along the coast. So the potential for harm and damage, we really raised with them. And
why don't they get it?
Because they want to be, you see, they want to practice. They're practicing now in the Hawaiian Islands in the Pacific, the Marianas Islands in the Pacific. They're practicing in Southern California. They're practicing up around the state of Washington. But they want to expand that to Idaho, which is going to mean they're going to be doing land testing over Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Northern California. That's one of their big range expansions. And then they want to go to Alaska. Now, all the east coast of the Pacific, and you can go to my website and you can see the map, the eastern seaboard, all along the Atlantic, they're going to have sonar testing, more of the same.
Isn't this going to kill whales and dolphins and other types of mammals?
Yes, that's why they've asked for the National Marine Fisheries Service to approve the taking or the killing of 11.7 million marine mammals over the next 5 years. So they know the damage. They know the harm.
Now, when they ask for permission to use sonar, isn't there different types of sonar?
Yes, there's low frequency, medium range frequency, high frequency, and then a new type of sonar which is called laser light sonar that's going to also be in the testing process. So what's occurring now is that they've been kind of restricted from using low frequency, but all of the other frequencies they're going to be able to use, and we would never know because there would be no way to tell if they were using low-level sonars. So it's not only the bomb blast, the toxic chemicals, and these are by the thousands. I mean, they're going to fire off in Northern California when they try to get this going, almost 6,000 Hellfire missiles. That's just one type. And then you're going to have all these other things. They don't have to pick up the debris that's going to be in the water. They can just let it wash on the shore and then say, well, local residents will have to dispose of it at our expense, is the idea. And so, but these programs are either currently ongoing because they've started. These programs are in the process for approval, and there's new environmental impact statements being written for other areas so that they can cover all of the Atlantic, all of the Pacific, and the Gulf of Mexico. And the Gulf of Mexico won't escape because there's plans in the works for them too.
Who writes the environmental impacts?
The Navy hires a private contractor to write what they want.
Oh my God.
And then the National Marine Fisheries Service is not independent, or NOAA, which is NOAA is the big agency that oversees the National Marine Fisheries Service. So what happens is the Navy says, well, we'll pay for the studies, and then we'll do the studies, and you can come along for the ride. But, of course, they're not going to do any studies which would make the Navy look bad or release them.
So it's, again, more conflicts of interest.
So they have a conflict of interest. So to say that they're going to be independent and then have mitigation measures or something that will mitigate all this, well, the mitigation measures are so bad that the EPA in California, Region 9, doesn't like some of the ideas that they're proposing. So what happens is, but you see, the thing is that our elected officials will not come out and make this public, because if they did, the public would say, how can you be, who is the Navy going to war against, that they need to practice in every ocean and island area, in all of these three oceans, all the same redundant tests for the most part, and does war mean that we have to destroy our environment in order to protect ourselves? That's not a protection. That's going to war on us, because that's the food supply for millions of people. That is in other words, the oceans give us really life.
They're also directly impacting climate in general. Yeah. Totally.
So everything that they're going to do with these programs is going to impact us in a huge way. And I can't figure out why the Navy needs all this practice and why the tests are redundant. Because what it's going to mean is that they're going to go through these 5-year warfare programs. They're going to say they have no missiles and bombs. So it just enriches them at our expense to go and order more, because they are going to spend more military testing for more testing. So I'm not sure, because no one, I can't even imagine who we're going to go to war against. And also, when you're testing, and see, these tests are over land areas, and they're going to be surveillance testing, drone testing, classified testing. So they're going to be testing and experimenting on us. I mean, that's what this is about. This is destroying our oceans and conducting tests on us, and we're not even given a choice or a voice to say, maybe no, we might not want to be the guinea pigs for the Navy or the Air Force.
How does this all tie into, for example, your work at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA? Talk about that.
Well, okay. First of all, it doesn't have a direct connection, in a sense, because unless you talk about the pollutants that will blow on land from the ocean and will pollute water supplies and soils and that kind of thing. But the thing was that I started the Agricultural Defense Coalition to talk about totally different issues, and had been working on climate change, experimental weather modification programs, and how it affected agriculture. And then on February 17th, 2009, I accidentally, in doing some research and talking to people, found out about the U.S. Navy warfare testing programs. And at that point, I turned a portion of my website over to all the documentation I could find on the subject of the Navy, and decided I was going to take up the Navy because I don't want them testing and disrupting and using us as guinea pigs. So that's how I got into the U.S. Navy issue. Before then, I didn't know anything about it, didn't know about all these other things going on, not from lack of reading, but because there was no press covering this issue.
You also write about upper atmospheric experiments. Are these connected type experiments with our Navy and or some type of overseeing organization that's doing experiments with the air as well? And can you talk about that?
Sure. The United States Navy put up an aluminum oxide dust cloud over the eastern seaboard of the United States on September 19th, 2009. And for experimental purposes. So the Navy, with a Brant rocket from NASA, and under NASA's jurisdiction as well as the Navy, put this aluminum oxide dust cloud up. And it's going to come, the aluminum oxide will come back down on us and will pollute the soils. It will pollute water supplies when it comes back down. Now, the Navy, there was no permission from any U.S. citizens to say that they could put up this dust cloud. They did it so that they can conduct different types of atmospheric experiment. My objection to this is not only the environmental damage that this could cause, especially when they plan more of these upper atmospheric tests this year, but they don't want to tell us when they're going to be doing the experiment. And they don't want to tell us where either, because they didn't like the objection that we had when they did this in September.
I remember.
So what's going to take place